So welcome everybody at the Data and AI Summit 26. There were a lot of announcements. The platform is really expanding in all directions. So that's why I am so excited to welcome our guest, Rochana Golani from Databricks, who's VP of Enablement. We will talk a lot about how the competencies in the Databricks ecosystem changed or how people can get them, because I think we can agree it's a key component. So yes. Welcome and thank you for joining. Can you just start with a few sentences about your role and how you see the ecosystem?
Yeah, perfect, Mate. First of all, thank you for having me. I want to plus one to what you said, right? Like when you're thinking about this change that we're trying to drive with data and AI, I think one of the most fundamental things is the humans that are along this journey. So I'm part of the field engineering organization at Databricks, but fundamentally what we are after is how do we bring the humans along on this journey? So I think of my role as building skills and capabilities for the humans, figuring out what exactly do the agents do, what do the humans do, and how do we keep the two coupled together?
Yeah.
That's basically what we are. So I'm all about the people in the middle of all of this journey of tech.
Yeah.
A strong believer that every transformation starts with the talent transformation.
Yeah. I think that's a key point, because we talk a lot about how the technology changes, the new features.
Yes.
But all of that has a reflection in the people, yes. And a project requires from them, not just the technology. So how do you see the changes in the last, 12 months in skills or the competencies that a successful team, a successful organization has?
Yeah, I think there is so much that has changed, and I don't mean this just because it's the right thing to say, but like fundamentally, think about the Databricks stack itself. So let's start with the very basic thing that we all agree on, which is the tech. And that is changing, right? Like 18 months ago, I think I was still talking to a lot of data scientists and data engineers. And that was the primary audience. That was the primary target of where that transformation was happening. But I think in the last 12 to 18 months, the conversations that we are having is much more about the business owner that is driving the change and working with the analysts, the scientists, and the engineers to actually get the work done. So I feel like the focus has shifted to the business users, and with the launch of everything that we heard with Genie this week, it really cements Databricks' capabilities with working with those business users.
Oh yeah, and do you think that a business user needs a different way to learn or obtain the competencies compared to?
Well, yes, because I feel like engineers are much more about just give me the hands-on and I am going off and I will like do my thing. Don't tell me exactly how it has to be done, but I want to get started, right? I think on the business user, it's a little bit similar and not similar, because they first want to get excited about it. They first even need to be aware of it. I think engineers do a lot of the work themselves in like being aware, and then they like come for the more like, how do I solve this problem, right? And I think with the business users, we do a lot of like these business impact accelerator program that we call it, where we are literally just like taking hundreds and hundreds of users in an organization that may not think of them as data people or AI people. They're just like, I am marketing, I am finance, I work in supply chain, I work in merchandising. And all they're doing is, how do I talk to my data? And they just want to get excited about what is the art of the possible with Genie. And I've seen this even internally, like our sales leaders, our marketing leaders are just excited that they don't have to wait for the analyst to create the next dashboard. It's just like, I can ask whatever I want to ask and keep my curiosity going.
Oh yeah, and when you talk about curiosity, what really took in my mind is that when I look at an organization, some people are more excited, some people are reserved about this. So how do you see the maybe we can call them different personalities in an organization. So do you have a view on like the types or how to approach different types of people?
Yeah. So interestingly, Mate, this is one of probably the single biggest conversation I've had this week at the conference. speaking to a lot of executives, a lot of C-level people as well. And believe it or not, I mean, with where we started, tech is the easy part. 90% of the time that people are spending in actually getting to the business outcomes that they need is bringing the people along.
Yeah.
People and culture. When culture gets in the way, they are not moving fast enough, right? And people are at the heart of that again,
Yeah.
right? So nobody who doesn't know how to use a technology is ever going to use it,
Yeah.
right? And that fear of the unknown really gets in the way. So executives this week that I've spoken to have talked a lot about, my people don't want to use data.
Yeah.
They don't want to use AI. It doesn't matter what great your technology is. So it is really part of the job of enablement or building capabilities is first inspiring. It's about getting them excited about a mission or, the carrot and stick approach, whatever you want to call it. Like part of the struggle that I think leaders have is, how do I bring everyone together?
Yeah.
And so some people are thinking about driving change with, let's work with one team, my finance team, maybe, or my marketing team or my HR team, any team that is willing and able, let IT champion with them, and then you can show everybody else how great they are, and then everybody else comes along, right? So I think we've been talking a lot about that there could be 3 categories of people.
Okay.
And I say this very generically, and I'm trying to box everyone, so, generalizing the statements that I have. But in the first category of people, I think are the people that are at this summit, who are just already bought in, who love the technology, who are seeing the future, who are excited about the future, and they're like, let's just run, because we are going to create the wave. We're not waiting for others to come and tell us what to do. And these are the most amazing champions that you can have in the organization, and they help you create the right environment for everyone else.
Right.
I think then there is the category number 2 that I think are people who are, they want to do it, but they're like, I'm scared.
Not super motivated.
Motivated, but they also don't know the how, and they're like dealing with a little bit of fear, a little bit of anxiety. Is this going to take my job? What does my new job actually look like? And this is where I think enablement and whatever can really, really help, because you can go and and this is the big chunk of the people in the organization, right? And you can really go and you can help them with hackathons or labs or, learning or tutors or whatever else that we can make available to them. And they become really excited about, okay, I can do this, and that overcoming that first hurdle gets them, a very long way. And we've seen this even in believe it or not, even in my own team. When they do it and then they're excited and then they take off. They're sometimes better than the A players.
I have the same experience,
And it's beautiful to see that aha moment going on. I mean, I started my career becoming a trainer for exactly that. You saw that glow in the eyes of people and you're like, okay, that's what I do my job for. And then there is a third category of people, which I'm hoping is the smallest percentage in this, but these are the people who will continue to resist, who are just like, I can't do another change, and I am not cut out for this. I don't have, for whatever reason, the energy, the skills, the motivation, the capabilities to really go on this AI journey. And these are the folks that should look at doing something else. Maybe this is not for them, right? Maybe these are the people who, I genuinely think they are going to take on a different career or a different path because maybe this is, because AI will transform it. I'm definitely an optimist, but I'm also a believer in this. So I think like roles will change and people will need to change to come along on this journey. And there will be, unfortunately, a small percentage of people who are going to find this really, really challenging and difficult.
Yeah, I think in almost every technology change brought a lot of winners, the most benefited, but I think the risk is never that any specific role will disappear. It's more like if you still use the tools of the last century or last decade, then maybe you will have a harder time to find a job in the future. But
that's exactly
if I'm, let's say, a head of data who's responsible to make the adaptation across the whole organization, and I know that competency development is a key in my success, then what would be like a rough guideline? Who should I focus first? Because obviously budgets are always limited, right? Especially. So should I focus on these business champions with a couple of architects? If I have a migration going on, should I spend most of my budget purely on the implementation? I mean, competency development, but the people who migrate. So what would be like a very rough guideline that you can give how they should just get started with it?
Yeah, I think I have two thoughts on this one, Mate. The first one is that you want to start with the engineers, right? Like unless things are built, no one can use it.
All right.
So you got to build.
That's a very good
right?
point, yeah.
So your scientists and your engineers are your most important people.
Okay.
You got to build them. You got to find the best ones and do it.
Yeah.
But I don't think, again, if you think about the three categories that I talked about, your best of the best don't need to come and do training with us, right? The best
They will
of the
do
best,
themselves.
they'll do it themselves. They need a little bit of like best practices, architecture diagrams, whatever else that they need. And it is very, very tailored, low touch, high value. Right?
All right.
And we should do that, right? Maybe they just sit alongside the implementation people. They sit around some field CTOs of Databricks, and they just pick up and they just like know what to do, and they
will probably spend their own time to learn what they don't know.
Exactly. They do a lot of self-paced. They read, they practice, they do whatever, right? It's a second category that I feel like you want to spend a lot of time. Because if you have 2 engineers who are doing it really well, guess what? You need 8 more who can help the 2 to actually achieve what you want to do. But then for every 1 engineer that you're training, you need to train like 5 or 10 business users, because your entire organization. Yeah,
Love it.
I want to say like 5 to 10 actually is the number that I've been using, because if you're trying to drive a cultural transformation or a technical transformation in your business, you have many more of the business users. You have few engineers, you have many more business users, and they need to come along on this journey. They almost need to push the engineers to say, I want this as an AI use case, right?
Yeah.
And when that is not happening, IT keeps pushing and not a lot of change is happening.
Yeah.
But when the business asks for change, great things happen. And that's what you want to do. You want to drive like this infectious momentum in your organization to say, but educate it, right?
Yeah.
I've seen a lot of IT folks, executives being frustrated by saying, people come and say, hey, at this whole contract procedure, can you AI this? And they have no idea what they're talking about, right? And you can't have that happen either. So you want an educated ask. And so I say, for every 1 engineer that you're teaching or educating or bringing along on this journey, think about the 5 or 10 business users that you're going to get excited about, become champions in the organization and move with you. And I also want to say that you want to bring your HR business partner or some person on your organization who's a people leader to come along, because you're going to have to rewrite your job descriptions. You're going to have to rewrite your interviewing process. You will have to rewrite your career ladders. How you do performance management in an organization is going to have to change, because remember that third category of people I talked about? Well, somebody's going to have to help them. You find new things, do different things. So the bar is changing, right? Like everything that we knew of a product manager, an engineer, a quality engineer, like those things are not true anymore. These things are fusing much more together because of the cost of software development. So I think this has to be a very deliberate pillar in your transformation strategy. You need a people leader who is going to, not a people leader in the traditional sense, but one of your technical leaders who is passionate about people, bring them along so that they can help you rewrite your interview guides, your career ladders, your role profiles, and and then just raise the bar. At Databricks, we call this the raise the bar principle. And it's really, it has never been more meaningful than right now for what other kinds of people, because you want to bring your top 2 categories to a whole nother level, right? And the third category, somebody said to me yesterday, the third category, if you don't meaningfully take care of them, they become a real drain on the organization, right? Because what happens is your board is asking you to do the productivity of 100 people, but 30 of them are not catching up. So now your 60 is carrying the load for these 30, which you don't need. So I think it's really important that it's a deliberate pillar. Upskilling and competency development is a very meaningful activity, but you make it hyper-personalized. You don't try to say it's a one-size-fits-all. You figure out where your people are, you do your proper needs assessment, and you bring everyone on journey. AI actually makes this possible. And again, being a learning leader, we have fundamentally transformed sort of how we even think about learning it now.
Well, I have so many questions, but let me, because I think, so first of all, I love the 1 to 5, 1 to 10, because I had a breakfast last week with one of the European banks, head of retail bank, And we were talking about hyper-personalization, and we're talking about the type of data we can now use. And he was not impressed, and he said that it's all great, but he says that the key is not the parts that happens up until we have the data. He said that what is really interesting this last mile, what happens, how we connect that to the users, to the business teams, to where we get, and that's not a technical problem, right? No. That's reimagining the processes and the way we interact with customers.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
And what you said is actually targeting the people who can make that happen. And so when you mentioned that the performance review, the expectations, even to some extent, even the job descriptions must change in the world of AI. What's your view on the future requirements? Because if I am any type of leader in a company and I'm asked, okay, we all know we will need a bit of different profile next year, the years to come. But what is that profile exactly? Then often there is a lot of uncertainty. Like half a year ago, probably the knee-jerk reaction would have been prompt engineering. We need prompt engineering. But prompt engineering is not that important now.
Not important anymore.
Exactly. So how do you see what is a good way when I look at the next 2 years? How should I think about competencies? What should I tell? How should I work with my people leader to bring that job description that's gonna make our organization successful in the next 2 years?
Yeah. I'm gonna say this, and at the risk of sounding like I'm saying this because I'm a learning leader or an enablement leader, so with that caveat, I think my first thought is that you can't hire people for what they know.
Yeah.
You've got to hire people.
It's not
gonna be relevant very, very soon. You've got to hire people for what they can learn.
Yeah.
Right? And this is a very hard thing to measure. But you got to measure, are they curious? Are they, what have they learned recently? Like I love people, like when I'm hiring, I ask people, tell me what you've learned recently.
Yeah.
And it doesn't matter what they've learned. Like somebody said, I've learned how to figure out building out a whole backyard and a pool and whatever else. And I said, tell me what went on in that journey and how did you go about it? So the ability to learn, be curious about new things is probably fundamentally important.
Yeah.
Right? And the second thing is, we used to say a lot about data literacy. Can they read data? Can they understand data? Right? And now I'm not even sure that, because maybe AI can answer a lot of the data related questions, but can they think critically on how to use it, right? So I call that AI fluency, but it's not so much that I can ask ChatGPT what's the next restaurant I should go to. No, it's not that. That's not using AI, right? Using AI is, can I fundamentally do things differently? Can I be more productive? Can I call this opportunity AI. Have I done things that I wasn't able to do before? Now with AI.
Yeah.
And if I can do that, that's already showing that I'm capable, I'm excited. And I have the ability to become in those top 2 categories of people. Okay. And that's what I'm hiring for. The third thing I'm hiring for is grit.
Good. Yeah.
Because when that much change happens, do you get frustrated by, oh my God, I can't believe yet another thing to learn, right? So you've got to have this grit in your system which says, I don't care. I'm just doing things that need to happen, right? So you're more interested in the outcomes than in the path, right?
Yeah.
The path will change. The how will keep changing. Doesn't matter. We'll figure it out and we'll do it together,
Yeah, I call it resiliency.
Resiliency.
Yeah. And what you said is really, I remember, I think I heard it in a podcast, but it was, you hire people who love the job, not the tools.
Yes.
Because the tools will change.
The tools will change.
So if you love, let's say retail bank example, if you love the role, what a bank is and how you can serve your customers, then the way and the tools will change tomorrow.
Exactly.
And I think, yeah.
And even the job will change. So can we just have people who are self-motivated? They have intrinsic motivation to learn. They have intrinsic motivation to be better every day, to try new things. And it's a very, very hard thing to interview for. Very hard thing.
And I have a challenging question for you, or maybe it's not challenging, but so I think what you say is also a little bit tied to ambition and to curiosity, natural curiosity.
Yeah.
And when you look at the population, it's not equally distributed, right? So some are more curious, some are more ambitious.
Yeah.
But is this, or to some extent or at all, teachable? Is this something that you can influence in your organization, that maybe people should, everyone be a bit more curious than what they are today? So how do you think influencing that? Because if everyone hires for the exact same top 15%, then it's not going to work. So how can a leader in an organization try to affect it?
I'm going to go to something really basic, but I think it works. It's a little bit of carrot and a little bit of stick, and a whole bunch of support.
Okay.
That's what I would do, right? And what I mean by this is internally, even at Databricks, about 6 months ago or something, we noticed that AI usage was very inconsistent. Some people were, exactly my 3 buckets of people. Some people were doing it and some people were not. And we were just like, listen, everyone has to do it. And not to say like we're going to measure how much usage you are having, but if you're not using it, you better have a good answer for why not. Right? So it was like that. So a little bit of stick, very gentle, but it was there. But then a whole bunch of support becomes really, really important. And so what we did was, when we did our kickoff this year, there was a whole day. So we get a bunch of training. There was self-paced, there was like communities, whatever else people did. And they said, on this one day, you're all going to go to a local office and we're going to build together. And that's it. We're going to just focus on building. Build a customer, bring a customer use case, and we'll build it together. And if you don't know, somebody will be there to support you, and we'll give you all the tools you need. And some will work, some will not work. But in the bare minimum, we moved everybody one step forward, because if nothing, they installed the tools. If they have the tools, they built. If they were building, they were building great. And they were helping others, right? So they became leaders naturally. And I think that sort of approach really, really helped. And now we can go back and say, okay, how do we do it better? But everybody was at least doing it.
I think you pointed to at a very interesting thing, which is when you give support, that really helps the people who maybe feel a little bit lost, they don't know how to do that. And I think the role of managers, which is, I think, often in technical circles, it's a little bit underappreciated, but a good manager knows their people and why they might be stuck, because some people are stuck for different reasons. Because I have a family member, I'm not gonna name, but she is not very, she's a little bit opposing AI, which is weird because she's actually worked in similar areas. And the reason why she opposes is a very, it's not the same for someone else, because she opposes because she thinks that AI had this or have this very bad effect on society. So when we talked, I also mentioned some of the things that I see which are positive. Like for instance, for me, one of the biggest benefits of AI is suddenly I have access to experts in areas. Like for instance, I could ask why something in the financial markets happened. I had no access before because it was too expensive.
Exactly.
And that gives access for, let's say, $20 a month. It gives access to people, access to experts and mentors, or
which are otherwise really difficult.
Exactly. So it actually can lift a lot of people who are curious. And when she saw that, she saw this whole AI in a different light. But for instance, in her case, the enablement is not necessarily technical. It was more about a mindset. So I think the role of managers and knowing your people is very important.
I'm so glad you bring up managers, because it's one of these things that I didn't talk about. I've just been talking about the leaders and then all the doers, but I really want to talk about managers. I think in this transformation, the role of managers is going to fundamentally be crucial, right? They are going to become more player coach. They can do more. They're not just translators in the organization saying, this is what I heard from the top, or this is what my team is doing. Like that AI can do so well. But they are going to become the inspirers. They are going to become the coaches. They are going to become the people who, make things personal for you, make it real for you. And they're going to be a great, great impact for customers and the actual business that you're driving, because they're close to the individuals that they are working with. And I think managers, again, their role will change. It has to change. Leaders have to be better with AI. But I think they're going to be critical in how we drive transformation.
I absolutely, because when let's say a board or a CEO says you have to use AI, ultimately the people in finance will know how they can apply AI. And so you need the champion, the leader, who can help them in a player coach.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And do you see maybe a change, or how do you see the formats how we teach? Because one of
Yeah.
the things that I hear a lot, and I see a lot of frustration, especially people who, let's say, learn from books, like longer content. Often they complain that people can't concentrate for more than 15 minutes. We
Yeah.
need micro learning.
Yeah.
I think especially when you had the learning platforms came up with much shorter courses that created so how do you see in overall the formats, the learning habits in the last 12 months?
Yeah. Such an interesting question, Mate, and I wish I had a crystal ball for this one,
Yeah.
but I don't, right? But here's what I will say. I think I have a long-winded answer on this one, so bear with me for a second. But I think forever we have known that not all humans learn the same way.
Yep.
Your capacity to absorb information, whether you're an introverted, extroverted person, you like to hang out with other people or not, like all of those many things about you impact how you learn, right? Your curiosity, your cognitive ability, all of that included, right? So for a while now, we've always done long form instructor-led, short form instructor-led. We've done self-paced courses, we've done labs, we've done AI-based tutors, we've done all kinds of things that people want to learn. I want us to say that let's not focus on the modalities anymore. A lot of people may not even understand the word modalities, but as learning people, we like to talk about that. Yeah. But it's not about how they learn. It's about are they learning. Yeah. I would like organizations to shift from measuring learning to measuring skills.
Okay.
And we at Databricks are fundamentally shifting this mindset to say, if I have seen in your Databricks workspace that you can build pipelines, I don't need to teach you anymore. I've seen you do it. I know you can do it. And therefore, maybe the next thing I teach you is the next step from there.
Okay.
Right? So I want to observe what you do. And I would love for organizations to really focus on activities that tell me they have the skills, and then give them the learning in the way that they need it when they need it.
Yeah.
Right? So more in the flow.
Okay.
So I'll give you a great example of this that we are doing internally at Databricks now, where let's say I have a seller or I have a solutions architect who has a customer meeting coming up with a CDO.
Okay.
Next day. And we know, want to talk about Lakebase because, that's what the CDO is all interested in. But this SA has never done anything about Lakebase. How do I know that? I know that because none of their other customers have used Lakebase. They have not completed any training. So I've seen all of these signals that tell me that this person doesn't know, and yet they have a meeting coming up. What if I could have a nudge into saying, I see that your calendar says you have a meeting on this tomorrow. How about I block off an hour today and I spin up a lab and an AI-based tutor that tells you how to prepare for this tomorrow. That's what we want to be able to deliver for every user, personalized in exactly what they want to do. And I think data can actually make that happen.
Yes, actually it's a very interesting idea that I heard, that if you can surface a lot of context or the emails and documents and meetings about what's happening, then even an agent can continuously scan that and spot the gaps.
That's right.
Because if I don't know something, I probably ask about that on Slack. I ask about that on Gmail, and then you can surface that and create a. I think there was a really great article which is maybe that AI is a whole new chapter in non-fiction books, because you can read a book, but you can also get now a customized learning experience.
Yes.
So it becomes more of a more customized than that in the past.
I don't think instructor-led training and books are going anywhere.
Yeah.
Because some people will still want to do that. I will still want to go sit in a class because I love hanging out with people, and that's how I will learn.
Yeah.
But will people also need those reminders, those nudges, those micro learnings, those moments of skill development in the flow of work? Absolutely. And I think as learning professionals or enablement professionals, it's our job to make sure that we do that. But organizations really need to start shifting from completion of training to measurement of skills development. Skills progression is where we should be going.
And what do you think most when again, if I'm responsible to make sure that data and AI adaptation in my organization grows, what these leaders usually, where are their blind spots in learning? Like, where do you see that? What are the things that they don't necessarily get, or they don't have the right mental model about how they should approach learning, maybe?
Yeah.
Or so, where do you see those blind spots?
I think one of the fundamental things is like not being deliberate about it, right?
Yeah,
Like,
okay.
I think people often don't think of that as the biggest problem till they uncover that later. So knowing that your tech transformation will only go as far
Yeah.
as your people, your AI strategy is your people strategy, your data strategy is your people strategy. So
Yeah,
one of the first things people forget is I need this as a pure pillar in my overall strategy.
All right.
They forget about that, right? And then they catch that later to say, I don't have the skills, I have all these cultural issues, people don't know, or they haven't built this ideal system that I wanted. So if they're not thinking of their people up front, I think they're not going to be successful. And we've seen this over and over again. And then they come and then they want to like hire away. So
Yeah.
they're like, oh, my people are not great, let me hire more better people. No, like your best person is only as good as they're only better today. But
Yeah.
is your best person going to be best tomorrow?
Yeah.
Depends on whether you put learning or not.
All right.
Right? So make it real, make it personalized, and focus on it deliberately.
Literate, I like that. Also, how do you see the future? Because one thing that I think we can be sure is that next year there will be a lot of new announcements.
Yes.
So probably change is one thing we can be sure of that. So what's your advice to
Yeah.
the leaders in that?
The thing that I think you and I've chatted about before too is make learning a continue.
Yeah.
Learning is not an event. A lot of leaders I speak to think about, oh yeah, we trained our people. Well, when? Last year? Well, that's not good enough because look at how many announcements we did today. So learning is not an event. Learning is a continuum, right? Remember, we're hiring people who can learn, and we need to keep learning them because your best talent today needs to be the best talent of the future. So I think you'd like need to make it into an investment. I call it a subscription.
Yeah.
Literally as our offerings too, but that's not the point. Make learning a continuum.
All right. Yeah, I love it because you know the technology capabilities and people, as you mentioned, one does not exist without the other.
Exactly.
So, right. And so now, if you mentioned the subscription, like what does Databricks offer in terms of learning, enablement, and support for the customers?
Exactly. So I think the first thing I will say is we chatted briefly about how people learn, and people learn in any way they want to learn. And so we've really removed the idea of you've got to buy one kind of thing. Like that's not what we do. We really say that we will offer training, whether it is self-paced, with labs, with instructors, with other customers, just your company, whichever way you want to learn is how we want to come to you. And we do this with a subscription-based offering. So we really want to make sure that you buy that, and it's a continuum. So it's for the year. You can take as much as you want. You can eat as much as you want.
All right.
In the whole subscription of learning, and it's for the user. And so you can decide, like literally the one question you need to answer is how many people do I want to like upskill? And we'll
It
help
sounds
you
like the flexibility is there too.
Absolutely. And it's about skills. So it doesn't have to be like all your people should be doing the same thing. So we have a very, very vast forms of content with like every new thing. We're creating new things so that, we're going to support you. All the support that you need to be successful.
All right, right. And who should they contact, or how should I get to?
So of course you can just go online and check out Databricks Academy, but you can also contact your salesperson, contact great people like your company, Mate, who help us, and also like, experts, right? Like you and your company understand what adoption looks like, and you're implementing this so they can connect with people like you to help them create what a great upskilling plan could look like for their org.
Oh, that's great. Well, thank you very much. I think we went through a lot of things, but to summarize, be deliberate about learning is not a transaction. It's a continuum. And without the people, you're not going to be successful. And things to look for learning, which seems biased, but I think one thing we can be sure is that
curiosity matters.
Yeah, exactly.
Curiosity.
Thank you very much. Thank you
so much.
for
It was an absolute
joining.
pleasure.